What does God need with a starship? Folks, I'm here to review The Exorcist, 1973, directed by William Friedkin, screenplay by William Peter Blatty, who also wrote the novel The Exorcist. Also, listen, I know it's been a while. It's been a couple of months since I've done a video. Lots of good, some mixed news, if you will. But hey, that's life. I'm here. Let's move on. Let's talk about some movies. Let's talk about a movie that changed the game of filmmaking. In 1973, there was a lot of, let's just say, your more or less westerns, karate kicking films out there that a lot of people were just like, okay, whatever. But then this movie comes out. And this movie comes out the same year that Enter the Dragon comes out, which was Bruce Lee's final film. But this movie really changed the game. This movie was the movie of that year. Okay. And it was the movie that everyone was talking about in 1973, the anticipation for it, the release, the post release, everything. Till this day, it's considered as one of the scariest movies of all time. But I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you right now, in 2023, it's not. It's not. But I totally get why in 1973 that folks would think that this film is the be all end all of horror films. It's not. But it's okay because we're here to talk about this movie. I love this movie. I really do. But to sit here and say it's the scariest movie of all time, maybe perhaps in 1980. But since then, we've got a lot of content when it comes to horror films. I mean, literally, scariest movie of all time. It's really subjective at this point on what is scary, what really does trigger the fear in someone when they watch a movie. Is it visual? Is it audio? Is it both? I mean, it could be spiritual, it could be anything. So it's really subjective. It's just for me, I don't find this movie to be terrifyingly scary. It's not a movie that can keep me up at night. However, it is a movie that I absolutely love, and it's a excellent craft in filmmaking, cinematography, the production design, the script, the fucking script. My God, the characters, just everything about this movie was just on the go. It didn't really have any time to just sit around and bullshit. And that's what I loved about this movie. Just rewatching the original theatrical cut and the director's cut, which everyone says is the version you've never seen, which is just that's for pure showmanship. But it's a director's cut. But it's also, you can argue, and I've heard this term before, it could be argued also as a writer's cut because William Peter Blatty really wanted the 12 minutes of extra footage to be put into the film because he was afraid that people might interpret, especially the ending, that the devil may have won. But if you really watch the movie and pay attention and actually give a shit, that's not the case. The devil clearly loses at the end. Spoilers, I know. But this movie has a great setup to a fantastic payoff. And listen, if you're one of those that's afraid of this film, you can't even see a single frame of footage of this movie, I understand. I totally get it. And I'm not going to argue with you. But I will tell that person at this point, at this point in this year, in this life, you just might want to just rewatch it because there are other terrifying things out there in this world that is really fucking scary. I'm not going to get into that now, but this is the real life shit, okay? The Exorcist, this is just pure entertainment at its finest, and it's a finely crafted film. And I absolutely love William Friedkin for doing this. I mean, I've listened to his commentary tracks, I've watched documentaries. Um, there's just a fantastic documentary on this Blu-ray, and it's from the UK. And I watched it relentlessly, just trying to study Friedkin's work and how he sets up these shots and where it really comes from. I mean, it's brilliant. It is fucking brilliant. If you love movies, if you love the art of filmmaking, editing, all of that stuff, watch this movie, but also watch the features because it's really cool. But there is also a 4K release being released in September. I'm definitely picking that up. I love this film. It's I think it's one of the greatest horror films of all time. I will say that. Not the scariest, but one of the greatest. How can I think it's great if it's not scary? Well, Visually, it's a movie that I do find appealing. There are times in this film that, yeah, it goes for the scares. It's disturbing to look at, but it's not like, I can't look at that. No, it's not to that point. But I will say it does go for it. And because it is so grounded and because it's shot very matter of fact. I mean, like it's flat. It's not stylized. They're not really going for anything. It's shot like a documentary, but it's not really a documentary. But it kind of feels like a documentary, if you will. There are times where I feel like somebody is just sitting there with a camera, documenting footage. So it feels real, and I think that's perhaps why people connect to this movie, or perhaps why they connect to it and then they are scared because it feels real. There are times where it feels real, up until perhaps the third act of the film. Now, I love the third act of this movie. I really do. I'm not going to discount what they have done in this movie. I think the entire crew, from makeup to practical effects, the direction, the screenwriting, the actors, everything about the third act of this movie works. I mean, this could have failed miserably. If you would have seen the test makeup footage of Linda Blair before the final decision, you would have thought that they were doing a Sam Raimi film. It's really bad. So this movie really could have failed visually, especially visually. I mean, given the fact that I just mentioned that they did horrible makeup tests before they can land a final decision on the look of Reagan, played by Linda Blair. Now, this ending is great because you have a lot of the payoffs that are happening that the first two acts set up. Father Karras, who is played by Jason Miller, who is also, fun fact, the son-in-law of Jackie Gleason. Ralph Cramden, The Honeymooners. So yes, he is the son-in-law of Ralph Cramden and Jackie Gleason. Anyway, same person to me. Anyway, bang, zoom. All right, listen, focus. All right. Father Karras, played by Jason Miller. Jason Miller, I haven't really seen him in much except perhaps Rudy. And that's where I first saw that guy. I remember when I first watched The Exorcist as a kid from beginning to end, I remember thinking, this guy looks familiar. But then I watched Rudy and I went, bingo. And that's where I knew who he was, but never seen him anything outside of that. So watching The Exorcist and then watching it again, this movie, you can argue and say it's really a Father Karras story because we follow his journey from really having his faith shaken given what's happening with his mother and all of those things. And so he's kind of like, I don't know about this whole Catholicism thing anymore, man. But then all of this stuff happens. And I feel like Reagan and everything that's happening with her is a test for Father Karras. It's a test on his faith. Um, Father Marin, same thing. We open up the film with him in Iraq, pretty much what Indiana Jones should have been in the Dial of Destiny. He is venturing out there, being an archaeologist and just doing his thing, digging up shit and being an archaeologist. It's kind of cool. It looks cool. It looks fun. You don't know what this movie is about. You are thinking you are going to watch a mummy film, but you're not. You are watching Father Karras, and he uncovers this little statue, this little artifact. It looks very familiar to him. And you can see that it unnerves him. But then he starts to see all of these weird things. And then at the end of that sequence, he sees the statue, which I'm kind of happy that they never mentioned the name in this movie because the name is kind of silly sounding, but whatever. Pazuzu. Um, I didn't make this shit up, but his name is Pazuzu, the demon Pazuzu. That is the demon statue that you see in this film. And listen, I will say, Father Karras, he's the man. He's the man. And the reason why I find this fascinating is because I see that there is this character who has history with the devil. He has history. There you can see it, you can sense it, you can sense that this person has dealt with this shit before, and it shook him. And to know that this presence is coming back, it's shaking him again. He knows that something terrible is going to happen to something or someone or somewhere, so he's on the alert. Then we get to Georgetown, where we meet Reagan and her mother, Mrs. McNeil, and she is an actress. She's filming a movie, so they have this little place that they're staying at temporarily and all that stuff. But what happens is that all this funny shit starts happening. Rats in the attic and shit like that. I don't care what you say. There is nothing in this world that sounds like that. Okay, that's Lucifer. So yeah, time to book it. But they were like, oh, we don't. They're not really thinking about religious stuff. They're not thinking about things in the long run as to what may happen. They're just there. Finds a Ouija board and plays with the thing. Who does that? Who does that? Nobody does that. Reagan does that. She's 12, so whatever. Kids are stupid sometimes. But anyway, so Reagan is now having all this funny shit happening with her, and she's getting blood tests, she's getting psychological tests, all this stuff. Her mother has no idea what's happening with her. And that is the testament to Ellen Burstyn's acting in this film. You feel the panic, you feel the despair, you feel that. When you watch her performance, every reaction that she is giving is warranted because you put yourself in her mother's shoes. It would blow your mind and confusion as to what is happening. I mean, you really feel for this person. So I loved her character in this film. I thought she did a fantastic job. The fact that she's coming back for the sequel is kind of like, what? Why would you do this? Why? Why? Luck. Blind, stupid. Okay, I'll get back on point. Okay, so Ellen Burstyn, she's fantastic. Now, Linda Blair as Reagan, she is great in this role. She's endured a lot in this movie and behind the scenes, from what William Friedkin has has he has put her through. The effects, the practical effects department, what they have put her through. I mean, fuck, man, these people would have been fired today in Hollywood, man. But this was the 70s. They were making movies, man. They were there because they love the craft, they love the shit. It was a whole different time, man. And unfortunately, they don't do that today. And I'm not talking about hurting your actors, okay? I'm talking about really making the art, the craft, just sacrificing a lot. Actors, performers sacrificing, you know, for the performance, for because they believe in it. I mean, it was a whole different ball game back then, and I wish it could exist still now, but whatever. Um, but anyway, so yeah, she did great for the role, and she could have easily have been the most annoying thing in the movie, but she wasn't. She was fantastic. I mean, for what she had to do when she was possessed by I mean, that was awesome. It was great. So it's two very different personalities that she pulled off, and it was great. I mean, if it could have been Reagan's voice, it still would have been just as crazy because it's another character in possession of another, that same person. So I think it worked out great. Then you've got Max von Sydow. Sydow. Sudow. Everyone has a different way of saying his last name. Max von Sydow. He is great. He was just like I said, Father Karras is cool. And Max von Sydow, he just kind of like he didn't have much to do. He wasn't the star of the movie, but his presence was loud because Satan at the end of the movie, you could tell they have been through shit together. She was the Satan was the one saying fear the priest, he knew the name. He shouted the name at the end once Father Marin walks into the door. I mean, this dude has been through shit. So obviously these guys have tangoed before. Into the field, and it's just I didn't they didn't sleep with each other or anything, but they have yeah, so butted heads, you know okay, enough of these sexual references. Okay, the masturbation scene. No. There's a lot of disturbing scenes in this film. Yes, the masturbation with the crucifix scene is pretty crazy and intense and vile, and that is the point because it's Satan. So yeah, just whatever. But listen, I know this movie's popular for the head turning and stuff like that and everything, but I will say this, and I'm sure others agree, because when I watch this movie, the element of realism goes out the window in the third act, and that's something I wanted to touch on earlier. I love this movie. I love the third act. I have no complaints about it. But if you're gonna sit there and tell me, man, that third act, it was too real. I couldn't take it. I'd be like, no, it wasn't. Even if you're possessed and if your head goes all the way around, your neck is snapped. It's broken. It's gone. You're dead. You're never gonna come back. There's no point in doing an exorcism. The person's dead. Okay, the body's dead. It's gone. Goodbye. Poof. So that right there for me, the green puke, the theatrics, all of those things, it takes the gee, this is grounded in reality feel out the window. And I do appreciate that because you want an element of fun in your film, in your entertainment. Otherwise, go watch a documentary. Go watch a documentary. But you want to have an element of fun, but also an element of fear. And you want that. And the setup to that entire third act is definitely worth it. It's so riveting and it's just nerve-wracking. It's a scene. It's a sequence where you're just sitting there, and if you chew your fucking nails, then yes, you're really going to have a hard time trying to cover those things by the end of the film, because it is very, very riveting, and just it's everything. I just got done watching this movie again from beginning to end. I haven't watched it in a long time. I'm still thinking about it. Okay. It's just brilliantly done. That scene when Karis and Marin are on the steps and they talk, and I can't help it because it's fucking awesome. When they were talking about and this was a deleted scene. This was the scene in the version you've never seen before cut. That was in there, but it was necessary to have that scene in there because I felt like without it, I mean, it's not like the movie fucks off or anything like that, but it adds more to the understanding of where everyone is at, and what the point the point of the story, I think, of what the writer is trying to tell us is fully explained and unfolded in that moment when they were sitting on the staircase. Why why this girl, and it's and Marion explains it's to make us despair, to question the faith, to see if, I mean, to paraphrase, I mean, to see if we can do this. I mean, it was great, and before that, Karras, he tells Marin, because he's not just a priest, but he's into psychology and all that. Like, he, works with people. He was telling him, trying to explain, the three personalities that this demon has manifested. And he just shuts him up. And he's like, no, it's just one. Fucking brilliant movie, man. This movie is a 10 out of 10. Um, in my book. I don't know what book it is, but it's a book of movies that I think I absolutely adore and love and cherish. This would be one of them. This movie is absolutely brilliant, and an incredible first act that sets up a brilliant third act of this movie. Um, I mean, even the cover, the poster to this movie, it's the scene. Um, it's a scene in the film, the arrival of Father Marin. The ending is just, it's great. I mean, it doesn't end on a like where everything is resolved and then it cuts to black and then the credits roll. It really kind of takes its time in resolving things. I mean, you see the aftermath of things, and then you see characters like Kinnerman, who is the detective in the story, who's trying to investigate a murder, because there is a murder story. See, that's the thing. There's so much into this movie that I don't really want to. I've spoiled some a lot, if not, but watch the movie. If you've never seen the movie, just enjoy the experience, and just it's great. But it's pretty fucking vile too, but I loved it. But um Kinnerman is trying to investigate a murder that happened outside of Reagan's room, because long story short, he fell down the stairs, his neck was twisted all the way around. Turns out it was Reagan, of course, who did that, and she recreated the head turning based off of Burke's dead body. And Burke's voice comes out of that little girl's voice talking to the mom. It's pretty, it's fucking awesome. But anyway, it's so metal. I love it. But great film. Has a great message at the end. Of course, good overshadows evil, and of course, you know, a movie like this is something that I don't know if it would be made today in this exact way. I mean, yes, we're getting an Exorcist movie from Blumhouse, but it doesn't feel like it has any heart and soul, and it just feels like a movie that we've seen 100 times that's been burned to death trying to rip off this movie. So the score, let's see. Let's go into some technicals here. The score of this film is really not much of a score. The Exorcist theme, the tubular bells, I don't really consider that the theme to The Exorcist. It's just really it's just it's music that happens in a moment when Chris McNeil gets off work. I don't know how that became the signature theme, but whatever. It's used, and it's very underwhelming. It really is. I don't think anyone's ever talked about because like there's movies that a lot of people just simply praise and they fake praise. They're like, "Oh, this movie's just it's great. It's great. I don't know, it's great." Yeah, there's things about great films that are not that great, and the music to The Exorcist is one of them. So but I gotta say, the way the film is shot, directed, all of those things, I think they were it's brilliant. It's just wonderfully done. But then again, this was made also at a time where movies were actually fucking movies. They were actual pieces of art. So yeah, it's when I was watching this movie, it just reminded me gave me perspective. It also reminded me that we don't really have any good films coming out during these times, and we don't have things like this that changes the game in filmmaking. We're just always waiting for the next Marvel movie to come out. So yeah, it's gotten lame. But anyway, The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin, brilliant film. I recommend it, and if you haven't seen it, check it out. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video for The Exorcist. I've always wanted to do a video like this and talk about it and give you my insight on this film. I might talk about it again this October. This October for Halloween, I do want to do an entire month of giving you Halloween movie reviews. There are tons of Halloween films that I do want to watch, Halloween horror themed films that I do want to watch and share with you guys. So check that out very soon, guys. But thank you so much for watching. Again, I do apologize for the lack of videos over the past couple of months, but lots of good things have been happening. So, but just wanted to just tell you I'm back, and yeah, I'm never gonna delete this channel or anything. If I'm my intention is to always come back and to give you guys, my insight on things, what's happening, in pop culture, talk about movies and shoot the shit. So yeah, it's nerd out, man. So all right, guys, I'm out of here. But until then, I'm out. Peace.